Okay, so welcome everyone out there and everyone in the audience to our second learning experience of the day, a daunting journey, homeless and disabled without a home. So part of our role at the Giving Spirit, a significant role that we play in our communities, is in making homelessness relatable, making poverty relatable, and showing the lives and the stories of the folks that live on our streets, have resiliently overcome their situations to become thriving, wonderful members of our community, and who are truly the fabric of our city. I want to first introduce our incredible moderator, Martel Akanji. Martel has been with us for now over a year, and has done an exceptional job of bringing his professionalism and expertise, to our educational panel. He has over 15 years of experience working with communities, administrators, and legislatures in the fields of education, juvenile justice, and public health. He is currently working on his doctorate in leadership and change, focusing his dissertation on social identity and organizational culture. I now turn this panel over and the rest of the afternoon to Martel Akanji.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that so much, Tom. I get the greatest opportunity to sit on stage and get to really take an opportunity to learn and really invest my intention. And I ask everyone in the space today to really be intentional with how we engage with today. I think this is a discussion that we are least likely to have and almost stray away from. So I really want us to ground ourselves and really respect the space today as we get to have fun and enjoy ourselves, but really, most importantly, take away some amazing nuggets and conversations that we need to have much more of. So with that, I get to really introduce this amazing panel that's in front of me. And I'm gonna first start off with Pamela. Pamela was introduced into the human services field by way of lived experience. In December of 2017, 13 months after being housed in the Skid Row area, she started as a peer advocate. Her passion, expertise brought her to become an advocate and speak up, dedicating her voice and platform to engaging and changing the systems for the unhoused. Her professional career continued to move forward in the homeless services field while participating in the Triple H initiative to build permanent supportive housing for her community. Her experience navigating Skid Row ended in 2022 as her faith in God was a supportive system that led her to the light. Pamela is now a vocational case manager at the St. Joseph Center and a speak-up advocate for the Corporation of Supportive Housing. I'm so glad to have you here today. Next up, we have Dawn. Dawn has over 25 years of experience working in general and special education. She really emphasizes on an equity approach and really talking about the challenges of the learning disabilities and its unintended consequences on inclusion and general education. She has worked as a teacher, a professional, and an administrator, and has an extensive history of collaborating with districts and non-public schools throughout Southern California. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Awesome. And last but surely not least, we have the amazing Hal. Hal is an important voice who can share their experience with wisdom about the intersections of disability and housing insecurity. Although they are really moving forward with changing spaces, they are disabled in a wheelchair and with autism, formerly unhoused, and currently housing insecurity. They are a powerhouse to be reckoned with. Hal, thank you so much for being here with us today. So I'm excited to really have this panel here and to really engage us in a discussion that's going to be transformative. And I'm going to start off our first question with Hal. Please tell me, when you think about how you are navigating housing instability and really looking at housing stability, what are the things that are needed as you navigate through the conditions that are set forward in front of you?
I have looked at a dozen apartments in LA. 3 of them had elevators. The rest were on the first floor and still had steps. I have had to purchase a ramp very similar to that to get my chair in and out of my apartment as it stands right now. But as it stands, the grade is too steep even with the ramp, for me to drive my chair up the ramp and into the house, I still have to get out of my chair at the bottom of the steps, work my way inside, and my husband has to push my chair up the ramp. I don't know what the actual numbers are, but I do believe the ADA requires that at least 10% of all units be both affordable and accessible. I have not found that to be the case in LA. If they are affordable, they are not accessible. If they are accessible, they are not affordable. That is a problem. I live on SSI. I support my husband and I on one income that is, 75% below poverty level at the very least for one person, much less two. I'm absolutely terrified of going back outside. It will kill me. I have absolutely zero doubt that if I go back outside, I will be dead within a year. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. My spine will no longer support me, and they cannot feasibly operate on me and send me back outside.
I think as working even inside of some of the shelters or visiting some of those, accessibility is a conversation that never gets mentioned, right? So I think it's even when we even talk about these diversity, inclusion, and access, which I'm gonna say diversity, inclusion, and equity, because I think at times we miss that access point and what does accessibility really look like, right? So when we're talking about that work and how we want to incorporate that in the ways that we're serving folks, I think it's so important to include, like, what is accessibility? What does that actually look like?
In a broader sense, accessibility looks like inclusion for everyone, whether you are hearing impaired, visually impaired, or physically impaired. There should be a way for you to access whatever you need to access, period. If it's captions, if it's braille, if you can't read and you need pictures, whatever your disability may be, you should have access and easy access to the things that you need to make it easier for you to survive. I don't know how to convince people that you should care about each other. I don't know why that's a controversial statement. I wish more people understood the fact that they are ever so much closer to being me than they will ever be to Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or even your local city council member.
I also want to ask you, when we talk about disability, right? That term right there, disability, what does that mean? Is that the term we should be using? How does that sit with folks? Please, if you can give us some of that insight in your own narrative, and then as well talk about, like, through that term, how has that also created challenges or in your pathway navigating housing stability?
Well, first of all, it's like a stigma, right? And no, it's not the correct word. We just had a brief conversation prior to this conversation here. I was saying that I wasn't feeling well when I got here. And I said, just dealing with the disability. And I said, no, it's not. It's a condition. I have a condition. It's an affliction. But I'm able, very much able, to do a lot of different things. I just have my ups and downs, right? And I have to struggle with it sometimes. But I don't want it to be a label on me. You know, when you go to apply for a job or apply for housing or whatever it is that you need to take care of, you know, it gives people an opportunity to say, oh, wow, I don't want to deal with this person. Or, you know, they may not be educated enough to know or have the compassion to understand that this could be happening to anyone.
In the words of my 6-year-old grandson, it can happen to anyone. To the person who doesn't know what to do for a person that's unhoused, first of all, treat them like a person. Treat them like a human being. Treat them just like a family member that's having a hard time. And try to do for them what you would want done for you or your loved ones. You know, I hear a lot of people say they need to do something about this problem. Don't you know that you're the they?
The first thing is being open and normalizing the fact that people need supports. And so that's why I'm using notes today, because of my own disability and why I needed a reminder about the microphone. So one is that students, young people, and adults who are homeless and have disabilities are living at the intersection of two very stigmatized identities. And both of these wonderful people touched on that very eloquently. So spaces that would typically be safe for someone who is homeless might not be a safe or accessible place for someone who is homeless and disabled. A safe space or an accessible space to someone who is disabled might not be safe and accessible to someone who is also homeless. And when you add to those two identities, students who might also be LGBTQ or English learners, in the school setting, the whole of those identities is so much greater than the sum of the parts, and the need to address them as a whole person, not just these individual boxes they might check. So that's one. And the second thing, and I just want to throw some statistics in here, if I may.
Please,
Thank you. I love data. I'm sorry. I come from the university. I like data. So the second thing I want to mention is that kids who are homeless, foster, and/or highly mobile are far more likely to be diagnosed with a disability. So some numbers. Kids who are homeless or highly mobile are 4 times more likely to be diagnosed with a developmental disability than kids who are housed. They're twice as likely to be labeled with a learning disability, 3 times more likely to be labeled with emotional and behavioral problems, and drop out at higher rates than more stably housed peers. So just that intersection of the homelessness and disability, it just has such a tremendous effect. Very often, spaces that would typically be considered safe for someone who is homeless or someone who has mental health issues are not safe or accessible spaces for someone who is living at the intersection of both. Not everyone looks like their story. And my own experiences with disability and housing insecurity were that sometimes, it's a double-edged sword. So in a sense, it was good that people made assumptions that I couldn't possibly be housing insecure or didn't come off as disabled because I was doing well academically, because they didn't put me into one of those boxes and lower their expectation or assume I wouldn't be able to participate in things. So that was great, but the flip side was I wasn't getting the services and supports I needed. And we see that a lot even now with kids in schools where, again, they don't look like their story, so biases and assumptions come into play.
Thank you so very much. I think about my times navigating homelessness and the ways that I had to literally either climbing over fences, running, jumping over things, having to hide in cubby holes just for the night if it was raining, thinking of those types of things, and me being so privileged to have a vantage point to even be able to have the ability to run and jump and to think about how I'm going to access spaces for my own survival. Hal, Pamela, please, and Dawn, feel free if this is also something you would like to answer too. Thinking of the ways that you had to navigate homelessness, thinking of the ways that we all have to navigate surviving through homelessness. What were some of those barriers that really stopped you from being able to access things, whether that was from your own mental, physical well-being? What did that look like?
I'll go first.
Thank you, Pam.
I remember being on Skid Row and going across the street, and I noticed a guy and a girl, and they were watching me. And I sensed something was wrong, and I crossed the street, and the guy snatched my chain. The guy snatched my chain. And I think that if I wasn't walking as slow as I was, I wouldn't have been a target, number one. Number two, I probably would have hurried up and got out of the way and went a different way, but I was in so much pain. When you're in the shelters at that time, right? You're let out the shelter at 5:30, 6 in the morning, and you have to be outside all day. And I'm already walking with a limp, carrying this heavy limb,
And I just imagine how, right? Like, I'm complaining about me, but I'm also concerned about people like Hal. Like, I could have stopped him. I could have physically probably threw him to the ground and did anything to him because he was a little thing, you know? But I mean, I would have had to come out of retirement to do that. Yeah, and I just, like, my reaction was just like, wow, they saw me walking slow and I was a target, you know?
Thank you so very, very much. Hal, please.
My biggest issue while I was living outside was the fact that I was using a manual chair and the cops wanted to harass me every day over ADA access. I, at the time, was using a manual chair every single day. So, of course, my camp was accessible. Why are you going to use the housed ADA rights to trample on mine? I ain't in nobody's way. I can't. If my wheelchair at the time was wider than standard, so I had to have more than 36 inches of clearance. And there was always more than 36 inches of clearance in front of my camp because I needed to get my chair right up to the door of my tent so that I could fall into it onto my bed. My camp was always clean, but still, cops and sanitation every day wanted to bust my chops over a thing that they could see was unnecessary. Don't ask questions you don't want the answers to. If you insist on asking questions, you'd better be okay with the answers you get. Yes. If you're asking questions of marginalized communities, take their word as law. They are the only experts on their conditions.
Pamela, would you like to add to that?
Yes,
Please.
I would. Imagine experiencing housing insecurity. Just waking up in the morning, if you even slept, right? And you need to take care of your basic needs. When you get up, what does everyone have to do?
Bathroom.
And is there a bathroom on the street?
No.
Okay, and then how do you go about doing this safely if you have a physical condition?
You don't?
Come on, Hal. And then you're a woman, too. Okay, a man can stand up and take care of his business really quick anywhere, real fast, but is it a comfortable situation? No. Imagine Hal trying to do it. Imagine me trying to do it, and I'm walking around and I'm dragging this leg, and I have to look in every direction, find somewhere safe, and then pull everything down to take care of that and then properly clean myself. Do I have time to jump through all these hoops to make sure, and I don't even know where I'm going to be from one day to the next if I have children and I'm on the street. Thank God I didn't experience it with my children. And I only talked about the first function that every human being has upon awakening. And then there's more to it. And that's enough.
You know, you speak of something to where it even helps us to talk about criminalizing homelessness, right? Where we're understanding we're creating legislations and policies, ordinances within our communities to say, if someone is doing this, we're not even gonna ask them why. Give them the ticket. They got a ticket now. They can't pay that ticket. Now we're talking about the next step. So what is it like to have something on your record by getting you locked up? Now we're talking about that you're locked up. It's this whole cycle of criminalization that then happens based on your identities, based on your abilities, based on all the things that when we talk about homelessness and the conditions that we exist in, this is our outcome. I want to talk to change makers and legislators and systems to say there are gaps that aren't being provided the provisions that they need. Here's how you understand that. I want to bring the community with me. So I think there's a lot of spaces where folks are making decisions for people, but not with people. And I think the biggest thing that we have to start to understand is, like, how do we bring folks who are experiencing things firsthand and currently, right? Because there's times where it's like, I've experienced this 10 years ago, and now I want to talk about that today. Yes, that's critically important. And we also want to say, how do we bring folks who are currently experiencing that to that table? And really providing that type of leadership development, allowing them to understand the system that exists, so then that way they too can participate in reclaiming their own lives and getting something more.
I have something I'd like to say to that end. The housing system, or lack thereof, in LA is not designed to help anyone. It is designed to frustrate us into becoming either someone else's problem or to drive us to insanity, prison, or drug rehab. So that we are someone else's problem and then our suffering can still be profited from. There has been so much money poured into the homelessness industrial complex in LA that should have been better spent on directly housing people. These interim problems, interim problems, that's just what they are problems, they are not solutions, are killing people.
There are some places doing great things, many are not. And there are so many changes that can be made to the system to make things more accessible for folks with disabilities, families who are housing insecure. And so much money right now is being put into programs for diversity and equity. Every school district in the country, let alone California, has programs having to deal with diversity and equity. And I'm saying that if you're doing diversity and equity and not including disability in that, you are not doing diversity and equity.
I referred to any sort of carceral interim housing, such as Project Roomkey, Path of Bridge Home, anything like that that is basically jail light. Those are problems, those are not solutions. You cannot treat grown adults like children or mental patients in what is supposed to be the stepping stone to housing. Anything that is not direct house keys is a problem. It is not a solution. It is a way to line somebody else's pockets while letting people suffer and die on the streets.
And please stop treating us like we're invisible. We're human beings. We have the same wants and needs and aspirations that you do. But maybe we don't have the same opportunities and the same support system that you do. So it's important that you see us, that you hear us, you acknowledge us, and that you help us. We're not invisible.
First, I just want to thank the panel and thank all of you for sharing your stories and being vulnerable to the audience, but also bringing reality to all of us. And for those of you who are still, in the margins, still trying to stay resilient in this fight, we're here for you as you are here for us today. So I think I expressed that from all of us in the audience. So thank you again.
Thank you all so much for allowing us to bear witness to your journeys, and I'm so glad to have shared space with y'all in this discussion today. Once again, have a beautiful day, and thank you all for showing up. Be well.